In this lesson, we're going to be creating our contact form. So we already created a placeholder between the footer and this particular section here. So let's open up our editor and add in our contact form content. So we've got our section that we set up earlier. So it's just a plain section with an ID for contact. So first of all, I want to create a div here, give it a class of containers. So this is a bootstrap class that allow us to hold the contents of our form content. Now let's create the form element here and create our first field. So this field, we're going to give it a class of form group. So essentially what form group is going to do is this is going to allow us to group together the various form elements that we're asking for this particular input field. So let's start out and create label. And we're going to give a label to, so we're going to have a username. So uname is going to be the name of the field or the ID of the input field. Username. So we want the user to enter in their username. And now let's create that input field. So input, and we'll give it a name. So we're going to give it the name, the same as what we've got the label. And also we need to create an ID so that we can tie them all together. So both name and ID are uname. And maybe we can add in a placeholder here. Enter your name. And also let's add in a class. So the class is going to be form control. And the type of input is going to be a text input. So the text is what we're expecting. So we can save that and go take a quick peek and see what it looks like. So essentially what we have right now is that we've got our label here and it's on top of our field, and we could very well do it within this type of format. But given that we've got Bootstrap and we want to bring Bootstrap into our project, let's create some columns, because with Bootstrap it's just so super easy to create a bunch of columns and really style out our form content. So sometimes you'll see forms where we've got our essentially the labels here on the left hand side, and then we've got the inputs on the right hand side. So typically you'll see that the labels are going to have less space than what the input field will be. So let's set that up, and we'll set up a class. So the class, first of all, we should also add in control label for a class. And also the control label can also be used for validation. And I also want to set a width here, so a column width of MD4. So essentially it's going to take up 4 column slots. And that means that what I want to do for the input is I want to take up the remaining 8. So let's create a div to house that, and we'll do call.md-8. And then of course on the smaller screens, we're okay if we're just taking up the full available spacing. So let's save that, and now let's see what this is going to look like. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. So we've got our username. Please fill out name. So I'm refreshing it. So now we've got this over here on the right hand side. We've got our username on the left hand side. So also what I wanted to do is I wanted to update our footer. So we've got our footer class there, and maybe let's just do footer A or something like that. So give it a class of footer A, and I want to make some more, I want to give it some size. So just going into where we're customizing our styling, and we're going to give it a height. So default height of maybe 200 pixels. So this for now should give us a bigger buffer here, where we can actually scroll down and we can move that down. And we also probably want to do some padding around it. So do 20 pixels padding, maybe margin top. So this will give us some more spacing around our footer. And of course, we're still going to work on what we want to present within our footer. But for now, I want to really style out this input form. So now we've got a format that we can use in order to create our input form. So let's go ahead and create some additional input fields. So also, let's group them all together within a field set. So this is just another way in order to control all of that field information. So before we go any further, let's open up our editor here where we had our underneath our container, and within that container we've got the form. So within there, let's add in a field set. And this is used again to help group together content within our input form. And I want to place that right before we close off our form. So just gonna restyle that so it turns out so it's more readable. So we've got these form groups here, and just like what we've done before, we can really use this, utilize it kind of like a template for additional input fields. So we just need to make a few updates because we know that we want to have that same type of feel to it where we've got the 4 columns for the label. So maybe this is email, or we'll just keep it within that same format. So we call it you email. So for user email, you email. And here we're going to add in email, and please enter email address. And we're going to update the type to email as well. So for HTML5, so that we've got the validation for email addresses. Let's go quickly take another look and see what it looks like. So now we've got our username, we've got our email, and maybe now we can add in a message area. So we want to collect a message from that user. So whenever they're coming in there to enter in some content, we want to create a message, and we need to use text area for this. So let's set that up. So we've got the same thing where we've got a form group, we've got a label here, because the labels are all going to be consistent. They're all going to be MD4s because we want to keep that same format. So the only thing that's going to change is going to be this input field. Instead of an input, it's going to be text area. And we'll give it a class of form control. And give it a name. So the name is going to be, so instead of you email, let's just change it to you message. So I'll give it a name of you message, give it an ID of you message, and let's close that off. So that way we've got our input area, and now we've got full message area, we've got first name, email, message area, and what are we missing? So we are actually missing one last piece to create our form, and that's a button. So the user comes in and fills out the form, and now they need to be able to submit that form. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to simply leave this one blank. So the label, and we're not going to have any label there because we want the same type of format where we're taking up the 4 columns on the left hand side for our input button, and maybe what we want to do is adjust this to be only a width of 4 because maybe we want to set our button all the way across. So again, this is depending on how you're styling it. So instead of text area, let's create a button here to submit our form. So the button type is going to be submit to be able to submit the form. This is all just plain HTML, so no bootstrap quite yet. And we can give it a class. So this is where the bootstrap comes in. So we can create buttons really easily with bootstrap, and maybe we'll just give it a primary button, so the blue buttons. And of course we can update this at any time. So now whenever you click it, it's going to send the message and shut that, end that particular tag. So now let's go take a look and see what we've got. So we've got our send message there. We've got please enter your name, email address, message, and send the message. So we're all ready to go. So that's our input field there, and we're ready to send and receive messages within Bootstrap. So all we would need to do from this point is just hook it into wherever we're picking up the messages, whatever server code we're using to pick up this form information and do all of the processing of that email information. So in the next lesson, we're going to continue to build out the styling, and we're going to make some additional updates to the CSS, customize some of that CSS to make it look more like a one-page website. We're going to create some additional spacing between the different sections and so on. So all of this is coming up in the next set of lessons.